My wife and I, who are newlyweds, belong to a close-knit group of friends because we all went to the same university. Regardless of how busy we are, we get together once a year for 2 days. Every year, these 2 days are December 31st and January 1st. This year's New Year's celebration was held at our house, and everything was going well until my wife's closest friend made an unacceptable statement. Everyone in the room heard the unintended slip of the tongue. My wife's closest friend tried to dismiss it as her being inebriated, but I could see how strong her reaction was. Everyone started probing her once I brought it up, and after 30 minutes of questioning, she acknowledged to having an affair. However, when she came clean, I did not react in the way everyone expected. Or maybe grow enraged, but all I did was take another item off the table in front of me and eat it while shouting "carry on," or something similar when she confessed, and everyone went silent to witness my reaction. The trouble is that, for as long as I can remember, I have had a really negative attitude on life. When I was about 12 years old, I realized that people bully those who stand out, and I started behaving as if I cared about everything to avoid being the odd one out at school. At first, it was difficult. Eventually, I just started reading books about psychology, voice pathology, behavior, verbal and physical cues, how to strike the proper tone for the right mood, and so on. I wasn't sure where to begin or what to do. Let's just say that by the age of 20, I was so good at conveying and understanding other people's feelings that I dare to say I'm better at explaining myself than the vast majority of others. However, all of those sensations were fabricated, and I secretly didn't care about any of it throughout the years. I suppose I did a good job because no one has ever been able to discover this in my life. But unfortunately, my wife and friends were among them. They were unaware that I don't know how to feel in some situations, so I wasn't sure how to react when I found my wife was having an affair. However, my ex-wife appeared to take offense, exclaiming, "What?" She grew upset with me after stating this in a puzzled tone. After a time, she started admitting things like, "Okay, I cheated. That's true, but are you sure you're not cheating on me as well?" My father has only taught me 2 things since I was a youngster, and he has repeatedly reinforced those teachings to my siblings and myself. And here are those 2 items. To begin with, each action has consequences. Second, you have the choice of whether or not to take action before doing so. However, once you've taken that action, it's no longer a choice, it's your responsibility. These are, and will always be, my guiding principles. In line with my ideals, I've never contemplated cheating on her. And ever since I kissed her, I've doubted my ability to do so. I've always performed my duty as her lover and spouse with great care. However, I didn't want to admit it since, on the inside, I was happy not to have to act as a responsible adult in society for the first time in a long time. Sincerely, I was enjoying my long-lost inner peace, but I also knew I couldn't ignore the chaos outside. So I asked my wife, "Are you done?" And responding with, "I'm done," is simply a mental trick that quietly makes you feel as if you've lost the debate. I asked the same question I had asked before, and this time she said she was done, even though she didn't say it and continued on for a while. When she did, I asked her why she thought I had cheated on her. She informed me that it was my present behavior, to which I answered, "Well, fair enough by this point." I understood that this year's party was completely ruined as I turned to face the people surrounding me and noticed their confused looks at me. My wife, who had been more aggressive after I accepted her earlier charge, began to cry as she bent down and asked, "Do you still love me? Was it really awful of me to have slept with David when you were acting this way?" Her best friend comforted her as a consequence. The divorce papers were not yet complete, so I rose up as she knelt down, then stepped in front of her, bent down, placed one hand on her shoulder, and told her to hold back her tears. "Happy New Year, everyone," I murmured as I turned to go. If you'll excuse me, they really didn't know what to do or which side to support. After all, my wife and I were acquainted with every one of them. As I was leaving, I overheard my wife's closest friend shouting obscenities at me, including "you heartless jerk" and other terms. She wasn't totally wrong though, since as soon as I exited the great room, I walked into my home office and turned on the computer. I currently own a huge property and am pretty rich. With microphones planted all over the room, some concealed and some in plain sight, only I have access to the footage because my wife does not know the password to the computer in my home office. As a result, I quickly retrieved the video and made some minor changes. I submitted it to her parents with no alterations. I merely shortened it by deleting the whole party video. I then called her, because she was hosting people when I called her in the middle of the year. She couldn't hear me at first, but when she did, she thought it was a joke, so I had to convince her to view the video I gave. I heard her rage and scream on the phone as she saw the video. I also heard anxious inquiries from folks on the other side. I hung up swiftly, knowing it was my cue. I told my lawyer everything when I called him. Our divorce was rather amicable, and my attorney is highly skilled. She had her own work-from-home career following the divorce, so I didn't have to pay her anything. After a few months, I realized that every single one of my friends from the aforementioned group was ignoring me. Normally, I would have talked to them and tried to explain what I had done, but once my wife and friends left, I had a lot of free time. At that moment, I started to question if I'd ever want to marry again. Even though I still care about my parents, it was immensely fulfilling not to have so much time to myself. Because they don't live with me, it felt really comfortable to live alone in my house. My pals from the friends group began contacting me again a few weeks ago. However, I continued to disregard them and give them the cold shoulder. Things changed when they invited me to a party again. I didn't want to go, of course, but when one of my pals arrived to pick me up, how could I say no? When we arrived to the party, I was joined by all of my friends and a few acquaintances. Until my ex-wife came about 30 minutes later, I was the last to arrive. I never spoke with her during the divorce process, and she made several attempts to contact me without success. I have security on my gates, so it would be impossible without my permission. Thus, it had been roughly 8 months since we last saw one other. She had bad posture, used a lot of makeup to hide her dark circles, and was clearly unhappy. In general, she lacked the brilliance and luminosity she formerly had, but everyone in the room appeared to be ignoring her this time. She also tried to approach me once, but I turned away. She approached me again, and this time I felt obliged to listen. Not that I had any remaining feelings for her. To depart a partygoer twice, I wouldn't want to be humiliated like that. She told me that she didn't perceive my worth when I was near her, that she missed me now that I was gone, and that she didn't believe we were destined to split ways like this. She attempted to follow me, but her eyes were misty and watery. Her best friend finally joined in too. She just discouraged any curious spectators looking for gossip, even if she did not participate in our conversation. My final contact to my ex-wife was the following, which ended our conversation. It's conceivable you still love me, and we were meant to be together. I also feel you're being honest with me when you claim that David was just a mistake you made, but you still did it eventually. You don't lack the ability to think independently, and you weren't even inebriated. You enjoyed it and did it willingly. You now have to deal with the repercussions. Some of our mutual acquaintances followed her as she cried as she fled the party after I had finished. Her best friend, who was among the others there that day, unexpectedly lingered and chatted with me. She suspected that I was cheating on her. They even hired many private detectives to do daily background checks and investigations on me. They couldn't find anything, even after months of looking. Then, before leaving the party, probably to console her best friend, she expressed her genuine sadness that I deserved better. When they left, the vibe around me seemed weird. However, I made good use of my social skills and greatly lowered stress. I also went home after the party. I expected to feel anything when I saw my wife and friends after months apart. There was nothing at all. There was no love, hate, despair, or wrath. It was useless, as usual. I wanted to address this subject ahead of time since I know some of you may ask it. I also don't feel attached to my family. My parents raised me, my siblings helped shape our future, my friends shared my deepest secrets, and my wife and lover seen every part of my body. I don't have feelings for any of them. Please do not misinterpret me. I've done well in my positions as a lover, friend, sibling, and son. I have never abandoned my responsibilities because of my emotional condition, rather. I have always taken them extremely seriously. I am pleased to say that everyone I have ever met has commended me as a wonderful husband, sibling, friend, and son. Before leaving the party that day, my ex-wife's friend stated that I was a good spouse who deserved better. It means something to gain the respect of your enemy, doesn't it? However, I never felt anything from anyone, so it didn't matter. As I pondered this, a thought occurred to me. Maybe it was my fault that my wife chose another man over me. Acts of service are my wife's love language, therefore I've always made an effort to do little things for her. In addition, Every month I would surprise her with a gift. We occasionally go to the movies. She enjoys seeing fluffy Gabriel Iglesias, so if the event was nearby, I would get her a couple of tickets if she was feeling depressed.
Distant.
I'd even reserve a plane for her. We go out to lunch once a week since she needs a break from always making lunches, and I cook for her and try new things in our personal lives to keep her from becoming bored. To give her the thrill of battling with me on occasion, I would pretend we were fighting and I was furious. And there was nothing nasty about it, it was all fun. Despite this, I subconsciously think that I am to blame because I did something wrong that led her to abandon me, and it is devouring me from the inside out. I truly want to know your thoughts. They are the ones who now know a secret that no one who knows me personally has discovered. Is it me who is to blame, please? Am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Taking everything into account, I do not think you are the jerk here. That you recognize that feeling things and having emotions are not instinctive is a fantastic thing. You've worked hard to blend in with society, and it appears that you are acutely aware of this fact. And in my opinion, that is fantastic. Even if you don't feel it on the inside, you're fulfilling your responsibilities by supporting and loving others around you. And to be honest, I don't think it drives you mad in the least. You work hard and want to contribute to society, which I believe is quite essential. However, let us briefly evaluate the facts. I do not think you cheated on your wife, I believe she did. This immediately identifies her as the jerk, and I believe you got it correct the first time. She knew precisely what she was doing, was fully conscious of her activities, and was aware of everything going on in her life. She knew visiting David would be a poor decision, yet she went ahead anyway. It wasn't the other way around, she chose to do it to you. You truly can't make someone cheat on you. It was her decision. To be honest, it should have been brought up if she was unhappy in her marriage, disliked you, or anything. For example, communicating and engaging in open conversation are solutions. I did not pay David a visit to hear his opinions. Even if you've done everything you can to put her at ease, that's a huge jump, and it's dishonest. And from what I've heard, you did admirably, and I believe that is quite responsible. For the most part, you made the right decisions throughout the relationship. Therefore, no, you are not the jerk in my opinion. You did an excellent job on this, in my opinion. If I were in your situation, I would be enraged if my boyfriend cheated on me. Without a question, I would be the one to cry, become offended, or even enraged. In any event, I feel your wife is solely to fault, and you are not the jerk in this situation. If you liked Am I the Jerk, you'll probably appreciate Am I the Genius. Check it out by following the link in the description below. If you want to share your own experiences, go to amthyjerk.com/submit. According to my pompous general manager, if I don't like my job, I have two options: quit or find someone to replace me. As a result, I chose to collaborate ill-willedly, figuring that this is my chance to inflict revenge on my general and get a new job with no previous notice. Here's what happened. As a young adult, I took the rash choice to relocate hundreds of miles away with little prospect of finding work. I was lucky to get employment in the local grocery store within a week thanks to the family I was staying with, who knew many people in the little town. The courtesy clerk was intended to stock shelves and box food. I rapidly became friends with my coworkers, and some of the clients were not too bad too. However, management was another issue. Like a human resource manager, would just clog up the line and waste a customer's time by providing recipes for the items they already had. In addition, she would fetch me from the rear of the shop to assist a man not much older than me in getting to his car and bagging 2 items, despite his complaints. John, the general manager, was also there. His name isn't John. John was nice among others, but when you were alone, his true character came out. Even though I shaved just before work, he once criticized me for having a shadow at 5 o'clock. For example, my hair grows quickly and is dark. I apologize, but nature is unavoidable. After the night janitor departed a few months later, John decided that I would be in charge of cleaning the floors every morning. Working from 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. was quite standard for my previous job at a movie theater, although I absolutely despised mornings. I was told that this would only last 1 to 2 months, but I'd still have to go to work at 4 a.m. For my troubles, I even received a 5-cent raise. How could I say no, really? I asked John how the replacement search was going after a month or two. He thinks that everything will be fixed within 2 weeks. Well, I'll ask again after the second month. John argues that the first application did not work out and adds, perhaps I know someone who might be looking for a job. I inform him that this is not the case. By the third month, I was over it. I approached John again and told him I couldn't do this any longer. Not my problem, he says. Search for a new job or someone else. Although this upset me, I wasn't in a position to leave right then. I resolved to start applying anywhere I could. My relative invites me along to go car shopping a few days later, most likely on the same day. My cousin was conversing with the salesperson as they were negotiating pricing, waiting for the sales manager to respond. I also discussed what John had told me about the role. After raising an eyebrow, the salesperson turned to leave. Shortly after, the sales manager approached me and asked if I wanted to work with them as a dealer. Furthermore, this would be a routine schedule, must work evenings, which would be more than my previous managing role in a theater. I was completing a new employment package as my relative signed paperwork. The next Tuesday, I was meant to begin work. I packed my belongings and headed to my hometown to meet friends as soon as I arrived home. I phoned the grocery store at midnight and notified them that I would not be returning to work, so I knew I would be off for about a week. I urged them to ask John if they had any questions. John was mysteriously no longer employed at the company roughly a year after I departed. Nobody knew why, given that he still had 5 years till retirement. When I went to the bank to deposit a check, John was the teller. I must admit that watching him deposit my paycheck from my new job made me very happy. Oh my gosh, hasn't it gone full circle? In addition to being a complete fool, John was a lousy employee. Really, all he needed to do was find someone to clean the facility and wash the floors. Be that tough a chore, and the most of the time the search should be straightforward. Because the first poster was already doing a good job, or at least doing the work in the first place, it looked that he did not want to seek for anybody else. And you receive a lot of credit for returning it to him and witnessing him deposit your check, even if he's just being sluggish. Because if John had been nicer and more respectful of you, he would most likely still be working. My boss shouted at me when I called out of work at the restaurant where I work, claiming that I could have done better and that I just did not want to be there. I'm currently at a crossroads and am honestly unclear what to do. I'd want to begin by noting that I genuinely like my work. I actually love my job, I am well compensated, and I get along with my coworkers. In addition to attending college, I work. I've worked at my restaurant for more than 2 years, starting before it even opened. I've never called out before, and I wasn't feeling good while at work yesterday. When I asked the on-duty management if I could cut for today, he encouraged me to speak with someone closer to the shift. I felt awful when I awoke this morning. I just decided to speak up since, no matter what they said, I couldn't enter in this manner. So I texted the owner and the chief manager. In his rude response, he alleges that I should have messaged him and used the work app instead, and that I just wanted to call out because I didn't want to be there. That absolutely infuriated me since, despite the fact that I always contact him in this manner, neither he nor I get offended when others call out. He literally slices people for preferring to have fun over work. When I told one of the other supervisors I wasn't coming in, she inquired how I was feeling and recommended me to get better. In the past, whenever anything came up, I'd either finish my shift or have it covered, and the way he spoke to me really bothered me. He was being aggressive for no apparent reason. I notified a former coworker with whom I had been acquainted before beginning work there, and she agreed. So, am I to blame here? Something wrong that I might not be aware of? What should I do? Okay. Your boss is a complete jerk. There's no reason for him to act that way. He literally got hostile for no reason at all. Like, let's look at this for a second. Here you are working at a restaurant, and you've been a loyal member of the staff ever since day one. I mean, you've been working there for almost 2 years. It's not like you haven't paid your dues. You're not like brand new or anything like that. You've been around and you have some experience. And you would think that, hey, maybe some of this experience comes with, I don't know, a little bit of respect. For your manager to be like, wow, you just don't want to be here. That, in my opinion, is proof that they absolutely should not be the manager. I mean, it does sound like they're the owner of the restaurant, but the point still stands. Why on earth would you want your employee coming to work sick? Like, seriously, can anyone make sense of that? If I was the manager of a restaurant and I had an employee be like, hey, I don't feel good and I feel sick, I would be like, Oh yeah, don't. Come in. Please don't come in. We do not want you here if you're sick. Because literally that is such a liability. You could get everybody in the kitchen sick. You could get customers sick. You could even infect the food, and that could be sent out to who knows where. Like, why on earth would anyone want you there? If you're sick, just stay home. And it's not like this is a chronic thing. You've never even called out before. This is the first time. So I mean, clearly it's got to be bad for you to be like, hey, I don't feel good, I think I should go home. So no, all in all, you are not the jerk. The owner in this story is completely out of line, and they have no business treating you that way in the slightest. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video.